and council staff to tonight's ordinary council meeting. My name is Councillor Brian Hood. I am the Mayor of Hepburn Shire Council. Hepburn Shire Council acknowledges the Dja Dja Wurrung as the traditional owners of the lands and waters on which we live and work. On these lands, Djarra have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We recognise their resilience through dispossession, and it is a testament to their continuing culture and tradition, which is strong and thriving. We also acknowledge the neighbouring traditional owners, the Wurundjeri to our southeast and the Wadda Wurrung to our southwest, and pay our respect to all Aboriginal peoples, their culture and law. We acknowledge their living culture and the unique role they play in the life of this region. I now invite councillors to stand and read the councillor statement of commitment. Statement of commitment. We, the councillors of Hepburn Shire, declare that we undertake on every occasion to carry out our duties in the best interest of the community, and that our conduct shall maintain the standards of the code of good governance, so that we may faithfully represent and uphold the trust placed in this council by the people of Hepburn Shire. Thank you, councillors. Tonight's council meeting will be conducted in person and virtually. The meeting is being live streamed on council's Facebook page, and you will be able to view the proceedings of the meeting, councillor deliberations and voting. The meeting is also being recorded and will be made available on council's website as soon as practicable after the meeting. In accordance with Rule 104.2 of our governance rules, a person, including any representative of the media, must not operate photographic, audio or video recording equipment or any other recording device at any council meeting without first obtaining the consent of the chairperson. Council supports a welcoming, respectful and safe environment for members of the community to participate at council meetings regarding issues that are important to them. Under the governance rules, members of the public present at a council meeting must not be disruptive during the meeting or interrupt proceedings. I also remind everyone that local government decision-making, unlike state and federal government, does not afford the benefit of parliamentary privilege, and no protection is afforded to councillors and council officers for comments made during meetings which are subsequently challenged in a court of law and determined to be slanderous. I'd now like to introduce council officers who are present in this council meeting. Mr. Bradley Thomas, Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Bruce Lucas, Director of Infrastructure and Delivery, Mr. Rance Salam, Executive Manager Development, Ms. Ania Guz, Business Analyst, Ms. Amy Boyd, Manager of Planning and Building, and Ms. Rebecca Smith, Manager of Governance and Risk. Mr. Thomas, do we have any apologies for tonight's meeting?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Declarations of conflicts of interest. Councillors, does anyone have a conflict of interest to declare? Councillors, does anyone have a conflict of interest to declare?
Yes, I do, Ben. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Dryly. That's in relation to agenda item
10.1.
10.1. Thank you. Officers that are present, I now ask whether you have a conflict of interest in any items presented before council tonight.
Mayor, in the confidential section, item 1.2 is the annual CEO performance review. By default, that has an impact on.
It certainly does. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Confirmation of previous meeting minutes. Councillors, I have a recommendation before us that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 20th of June and the special meeting of council held on the 27th of June, as previously circulated to councillors, be confirmed. I'm in search of a motion. Councillor Simpson.
This is recommendation.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Hewitt. All those in favour? That's Councillor Henderson, Dryly, Halliday, Bray, Simpson and Hewitt. with Hood against. Councillors, are there any items of urgent business? No, officers? Presentation of councillor reports. I will begin proceedings with my report. Councillors, the past month has again been very busy, varied and eventful. At a community level, I was honoured to preside over and speak at a flag raising ceremony to commence NAIDOC Week and attended a naming function at Creswick Neighbourhood Centre, and I congratulate them on their initiative to rename their facility using Indigenous language. The completion of works and the reopening of Creswick Town Hall was a significant and pleasing milestone in the past month. Excuse me. But heritage buildings are so important for our community and must be maintained to a high standard. Congratulations to council officers and the contractor on the successful completion of such intricate works. Again, on the subject of restoration, I know the Trentham community is especially grateful for the repair works undertaken on the High Street clock that commemorates the much loved Dr. Gwyneth Wisewald. At an organisation level, the past month has included a quarterly meeting of the Audit and Risk Committee, a meeting with our State Member of Parliament, Marianne Thomas, a Rurals Council Victoria Forum, and an inaugural meeting of the Greater Ballarat Alliance of Councils. And of course, in the past month, we adopted a budget for the 23-24 year. Finally, I draw attention to the extensive list of achievements listed in the Chief Executive's report in the papers that are before us. When reflecting back over the past 12 months, it is remarkable to see such a long list of achievements and milestones. In such a busy environment, it is easy to not take time to reflect on successes and celebrate in an appropriate way. Council's workforce and management team are to be commended on these noticeable achievements, as they have worked tirelessly on behalf of the community in often very challenging circumstances. I commend that report to you. Councillor Dryly, your report.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm delighted to share some progress and activities I've engaged in since our last meeting in June. Just last week, I attended the Rural Councils Victoria Forum in Echuca, aptly themed Doing Things Differently. We gained valuable insights into the ongoing physical impacts and trauma caused by the flooding event there. And I extend my congratulations to the Campaspe Shire Council and Mayor Rob Amos for successfully hosting this important event, along with the team at Rural Councils Victoria. This forum reinforced the urgency for us to be adapting to our climate and the necessity to build our infrastructure back better. Continuing our commitment to community engagement, we held a listening post and structure planning session in Creswick this month. That these platforms for dialogues with councillors and staff continue to be crucial in understanding our community needs and ensuring that your voices are heard. Recently, I attended NAIDOC Week flag raising and smoking ceremony in Creswick, and signalling our ongoing commitment to reconciliation with our Djadjurrung First Nations traditional owners. Creswick Neighbourhood Centre deserves applause for hosting the event and launching their renamed rooms in Indigenous language, especially given the positive opportunity for change offered to us this year through the Voice to Parliament and the forthcoming referendum. One of the other high points this month was the reopening of the Creswick Town Hall, attending the event with MPs Martha Haylett, Catherine King, community members, contractors and staff and other councillors. I was immensely proud to see this iconic building restored to its former glory, signalling a brighter future for Creswick, one would hope. On the sustainability front, the Hepburn ZNet Community Roundtable meeting highlighted our Shire's impressive achievements. We've sold, or not we, but the bulk buyers sold over 8 EVs, and reduced 22 tonnes of carbon through that. And through the heat pump scheme, there were 78 systems sold with a reduction of over 407 tonnes of carbon. So, and also a note of our solar savers program, which has now installed over 100 systems over the life of the program. So some really great things happening in our Shire on the sustainability front. I was also honoured to be invited to the smoking ceremony to celebrate the renaming of here to Lani Balramul Yaluk today. And this is a really significant event, and it was organised by multiple shires and geographic names Victoria, and marked a return of language to country, which is a deeply meaningful act of for cultural restoration. Lastly, I'd like to just to address our ongoing concern of our roads, and it's a common and oft spoken about topic in our local community, and just to reassure people that we've have spent over $4 million repairing storm damaged roads in the past, since 8 months or so since the last storm event. I understand people's frustration regarding the potholes and drainage issues, but they really are major priorities for us, and it's heartening to see the ongoing work in this area, and particularly around some of the drainage work that's begun in Creswick. Once again, thank you for everyone for their participation, and that's the end of my report. Thanks.
Thank you, councillor Driley. Councillor Simpson.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I've been on leave during the past month. I did attend the first briefing on PLN 22/0346, development of 129 Morgantes Road, Eganstown, for a micro abattoir, which is our first item on the agenda tonight.
Thank you, councillor Simpson. Councillor Bray.
Thank you, councillor Hood. I also attended some of the events that other councillors have mentioned. And in the last month, I was attended the Melbourne University Faculty of Medicine's 2023 Halford Oration. This year, the guest speaker was the Associate Dean, Indigenous Professor Sandra Eads, AO. Professor Eads is a Noongar woman from Western Australia, and she was Australia's first Aboriginal medical doctor to be awarded a PhD. Her PhD investigated the causal pathways and determinants of health among Aboriginal infants in the first year of life. Professor Eads was named New South Wales Woman of the Year in 2006, and in recognition of her research contributions to Aboriginal communities, has received a Deadly Award, a National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Award, for outstanding achievements in health, as well as an Associate Dean, Indigenous. She's Professor at the Centre for Epidemiology and Biostatistics, Melbourne School of Population and Global Health. The oration is a regular occurrence at Melbourne University that outlines key developments in health and research. One of Professor Eads' most important achievements was her leadership role in the development of National Health and Medical Research Council's Roadmap, a guide for improving Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health through research. Aboriginal people experience significantly shorter life expectancy and poorer health outcomes and conditions than non-Indigenous Australians. Professor Eads found that in her research, the most effective way to capture truly accurate data was to work closely with Aboriginal communities and involve them in the design of the research process. She spoke in her oration of the importance of involving Aboriginal people at a grassroots level to work together to improve health outcomes for those communities. She said that this is why an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice to Parliament is so important in medical research for Aboriginal people, and understanding their needs and their unique ways of doing things helps governments deliver better programs that don't waste money and don't miss the mark. It's vital to get that community input. She spoke of the importance of the voice to Parliament and hearing directly from specific Aboriginal communities about how best to help them and how to provide services in a useful way. And so as this topic becomes before all of us, I'm encouraging all residents to inform themselves about what the Voice to Parliament is and what is being proposed, and to make their choice when the referendum is run later this year. As a local representative for my own community, I know how important it is that local views are heard and considered when governments make decisions that impact all of us. Today, I attended the celebration of bringing traditional Aboriginal language back to country with a name ceremony for our local creek near Franklin Ford, Lani Baramu Yaluk. The name means, or can mean, the moving waters near the home of the emu. By recognising this name, we're adding to our rich Australian culture, not taking anything away. And by listening to language, listening to country, and giving our Aboriginal people a voice, we're making sure we're including everyone in the conversation and ultimately making our Australian culture richer and fairer for all. And I'm proud that Hepburn Shire is working with the traditional owners of Jara to walk together in reconciliation.
Thank you, councillor Bray. Councillor Hewitt, your report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just put my stopwatch on since that might be useful. No, I can't, but anyway.
I can do that for you.
All right, good. Like my fellow councillors, I attended the renaming of Lani Baramu Yaluk today, and that was certainly a moving experience, reinstating as it has Jara language into our environment. And I was just reflecting as a councillor on how long that process has taken. It was started many years ago by community members, including Michelle Clifford, who unfortunately was not able to be there today, in instituting a community petition, followed up by the previous council, who moved a motion to have officers look at this. When I was mayor, I had to sign the letter that went out to residents. Councillor Dryly, when he was mayor, had to talk with objectors and respondents. And today, Councillor Hood, as mayor, you got to speak about it. It just highlighted how important things can take a long time and need us all working together. Councillors working together, community working together, and officers and other people in the community. And that was certainly, as well as the moving event of actually hearing the language spoken and seeing the impact it had on the Jara people that were there, it also did give me a reflection on how important it is for us all to work together. That was followed, not followed, previously by, I attended the NAIDOC language conversation, Jara language conversation with Harley Donnelly Lee and Barry Golding at the DNC during NAIDOC week. And it was certainly a learning experience to hear Harley talk about his PhD work and reinstating and investigating and trying to reclaim Jara language given the impact of colonisation and dispossession. There have been a number of events this week that just highlight the diversity in our community. I heard Tim Entwistle of the Botanical Gardens talk at the Horticulture Society, Dean Douglas sing at the 14th of July, and even the Western Region Poultry Show. Diversity held up at Victoria Park. Diversity of events that show, I think, and we've got Borealis starting next week, shows the importance of a range of events, both to meet the needs of our community, but also to attract visitation. Rural health has been in the news a lot in the last month. The National Rural Health Alliance has made up of 47 national health-related organisations, including Rural Doctors Australia, have indicated that in rural and regional areas, governments spend $850 less per head of population per year in regional areas. Also, last week, the government released mortality data. Between 2017 and 2021, there were 729 deaths in Hepburn Shire, of which 241 of them were considered, that's 33%, were considered to be premature. So there is a link between the amount of health spending and premature deaths and community health. And I suppose people might ask, well, why is she talking about that? What's council got to do with health? Well, we do have health prevention responsibilities. Our agenda, one of our agenda items tonight is around child and maternal health services. That certainly has a preventative focus. We have an ageing workshop happening towards the end of the month in Trentham, positive ageing. And we, our budget last month did provide money for sport and recreation facilities across the Shire, both projects to implement these and planning for them. And sport, we know that physical activity and sport and recreation participation is good for health, physical activity, it's good for physical health, it's good for mental health, and it's also good for social connection and inclusion. So Councillor Bray has talked about Aboriginal health, and that's very important, but so too is the health of people in rural and regional areas. And those statistics that I've quoted certainly show that for many of our residents, we have a high health risk indicators, and that where our federal and state governments are not addressing these as well as they could. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Hewitt. Councillor Halliday, your report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This month I met with Martha Haylett. This meeting including advocating for childcare centre in Clunes, transport to health appointments, which is a big issue for our residents trying to get into Ballarat for appointments, improved public transport, a high school in the west of the Shire, and health service providers to provide outreach to townships in our Shire, not just Ballarat. I've also been advocating for the Clunes Sport and Recreation Master Plan to look at the option for a greenfield site. And it's recently been agreed that council will develop a project advisory group, which comprises approximately 7 community members, which will work alongside council to explore and develop the master plan options and consult with the community. This is very exciting for Clunes, and I look forward to working with the group. Today, as everyone else has previously said, I attended the renaming ceremony at Lani Barramull Yullet. It was a historic event that is returning language to country, and I hope to see more of this as we continue our work towards reconciliation in Hepburn. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Halliday. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll put my stopwatch on too. And so being last doesn't mean being the least, but I won't cover a lot of what my colleagues have done. But I will mention the fact that we did attend the reopening of the Creswick Town Hall after the repairs to the roof and exterior of the building. Now, Creswick people were pleased to see the revived paintwork, and particular note was made of the flag being raised on the new flagpole. It's been many years since we've had the flag flying on the Creswick Town Hall. Much of the unseen work was necessary to preserve the building into the future. We also attended the flag raising alluded to by my colleague at the event NAIDOC Week. Later went to the Creswick Neighbourhood Centre for the naming of the rooms. This was a great initiative of the centre, and all enjoyed the words of Dja Dja Wurrung Representative Jason Kerr, who conducted the smoking ceremony. The structure planning meeting was held in Creswick, and I must say there was only a small number of people, but that didn't matter. It was as those that attended left some very clear messages for those who took the time to come and see us. Very special day last Sunday. I was invited by Neville Cartlidge OAM be present when he received an award for his over 70 years as an adult scout leader. This was along with a life membership of Scouting Victoria. The latter has only been given to 20 people since 1908, as my understanding of things, so a great honour. I also discovered that Neville has been a CFA volunteer for 68 years and served on the board of the Creswick Hospital and John Curtin boards for 38 years. And this is only a snapshot of the service to the community and the region. I also note there's a bit of sadness the cancellation of the Commonwealth Games. This, of course, was going to be held in Creswick in our shire. But people need to take heart that the trails were well planned before the Commonwealth Games even became an event, and it was just the icing on the cake as far as we were concerned. But that contract has been let and is proceeding. Last night I had a meeting with the Scouts and U3A, and they are developing plans for a new building, and that's not just for themselves, but for community use. And they're well underway, are now going away and putting business plan and seeking funding from various government bodies. And whilst it's not a council project, I'm sure that we did move a motion, an advocacy motion earlier in the last year, so that we could see that perhaps they get some support from us, if not monetary, but certainly some moral support. So thank you. As I said, going last means you haven't got a lot to say, but without going over things, but thank you.
Thank you, councillor Henderson. Don't think there's any significance in the sequence in which councillors give their reports. It might be just a random name selection.
No, it's not.
Councillors, the recommendation before us is that council receives and notes the mayor's and councillors' reports. Moved councillor Simpson, seconded councillor Henderson. Those in favour? That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Point 3 on the agenda is the Chief Executive's report. Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor, and the report is included in tonight's agenda. Just to make a few particular items. Thank you for your comments, Mayor, in relation to the long list of achievements for the last 12 months. It was really satisfying as an organisation to sort of list them, and it's very easy to get into the moment and what's next or what was happening last week, and sometimes you forget about how much has been achieved under some really trying circumstances after the last 12 months. So really do appreciate the support from councillors, and particularly the effort by all staff in delivering these projects for our community. Councillor Henderson and others touched on the news today of the Commonwealth Games cancellation. As we noted, bitterly disappointed in this result, but we can assure the community that we will work with state government in terms of the legacy that the Commonwealth Games was to provide in terms of infrastructure, housing, and also development of our tourism opportunities as well. And reiterate what councillor Henderson says, the Creswick Trails is well underway, with construction to be completed late next year. It's a little bit slow going at the moment, given the weather. It's freezing out there, and some of the conditions aren't fantastic, but the crews are working away there as well. The other, as I said, plenty of highlights during the month, but also during this month, council released results of the statewide satisfaction or community satisfaction survey. This is available on council's website. It goes into a fair bit of detail. It's a independent survey that's undertaken by the state government, and it's just one of those tools that gives us a bit of a snapshot of our input on the community. What was really pleasing was we had some slight increases across all of the major impacts and categories that are sort of reviewed as part of that survey. And this really did well against the average of all local governments in Victoria and also other small rural councils. Overall, the average was a reduction. So we still have plenty to do, and we're continuing to try and improve our way around community engagement, decisions for our community, our customer service, our roads, our waste, and all 100 services that we provide. But it's very pleasing to see some upward trend in there, and really do appreciate the efforts and work by staff across our organisation. The recommendation is in front of you, and that council receives and notes the Chief Executive Officer's report for July 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Councillors, I'm in search of a motion. Can move councillor Bray. Thank you. Seconded councillor Henderson. All those in favour, please indicate. That is carried unanimously. Item 9 on the agenda is public participation time. I can advise that no petitions have been received for tonight's meeting, and we have received one question.
Now, that question is from Mr. Kelvin Granger and Mr. Dean Hurlston. Can council please advise the dollar amount of cost shifting from state government they estimate they occurred in the 2022-23 financial year?
And council's response is that council does not have the information available. And as a small rural council, we don't have the resources to calculate such an exact figure. We do continue to work with both state and federal governments to ensure the long-term financial sustainability of council. Agenda item is 9.3, requests to address council, and I believe there are no such requests being lodged. Agenda item 10.1 is PLN 22/0346, the development of 129 Morgantis Road, Eganstown for a micro abattoir. And to introduce this report is Ms. Amy Boyd, Manager of Planning.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. The application before you tonight seeks approval to develop the land and use the land for an abattoir at 129 Morgantis Road, Eganstown. The development includes a building to support slaughter facilities, a boning room, commercial kitchen, farm gate shop, chiller and curing room, and an office and staff. Operations 120 and translates average of 8 cattle per month and 45 pigs. The application was advertised and 30 objections and 27 letters of support were received. Of the objections, the main concerns were environmental impacts, the location and zone being inappropriate, loss of amenity to neighbouring residents, impacts to local road networks, odour, vermin control, and wastewater management. The site sits within a farming zone and the development is affected by the Environmental Significance Overlay Schedule 1. The application was referred to a number of authorities, including Goulburn Murray Water and the EPA, and no objections were received. Overall, the application has been measured against the policy and provisions of the Hepburn Planning Scheme. It's considered the design, siting and operation is appropriate. It is noted that compliance of any future permit will require close monitoring and include multiple agencies, including PrimeSafe, EPA and Council. Council officers recommend to councillors this evening that a permit be granted, subject to 45 conditions, which include operational, environmental and development restrictions and requirements. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd. I will note that Councillor Dryley left the room prior to conversation on this matter. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Mayor Hood. I have a couple of questions, perhaps I'll ask them one at a time. The plan shows the activity of the abattoir will be occurring in a closed shed. Are there any conditions in the permit for further visual screening from the nearby road or property?
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, Councillor Bray, there are recommended conditions within the document that outlines a landscaping plan and for landscaping treatment to be in and around the shed that would provide a screening to that from neighbouring groups.
Thank you. Can I ask also that the application shows that materials are being processed on site and any waste may be composted and also put through a septic system and waste hives removed off-site. What conditions are there in the current permit for any non-processed waste?
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, there is a current condition, condition 18, that makes it clear that any non-processed waste, so any waste outside of that being composted, would be removed from site. You could strengthen that condition if you sought to make it clear that that's not to be buried or stockpiled, for example.
I think you might have already covered my next question, and that is there any concern from the catchment management authorities about the quality of water leaving the site and the effect on the creek and the mineral spring?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. The Goulburn Murray Water have no objections to the proposal, but they have put a number of conditions on any future permit, which includes ensuring no contaminated wastewater or stormwater. And there's a specific condition on there that there is to be no contaminated waters to be discharged to any waterways.
My next question is it actually appropriate for an abattoir to operate within a farming zone according to our planning scheme?
Thank you. And again, through you, Mr. Mayor. It's a good question, councillor Bray. So an abattoir sits within the nesting of a rural industry, and rural industry is a permit required use within the farming zone. So it is certainly allowed within that zone, subject to going through the relevant provisions and what we've assessed tonight.
Further questions, councillors? Councillor Simpson?
Thank you. This is my question for planner. So in the briefing agenda, it said that no more than 200 tonnes per year would be produced in waste. My concern is how will this waste be dealt with and be deposited into pits on the property?
Thank you. And through you. Thanks for the question, councillor Simpson. So the application talks about no more than 200 tonne per year being processed for the abattoir facility, and the surplus waste, the application talks about the composting of that waste and then the wastewater going into the appropriate septic treatments. There's also a part of the environmental management plan, a condition in there that anything that is surplus to that needs to be removed from site, and we have got a condition in there that it would need to be removed from site.
Thank you. So my next question is just to follow on from councillor Bray's question. The property or the proposed abattoir is in very close proximity to it's called the Deep Spring Mineral Water, public mineral water spring. So Amy, you just said that no water will be discharged to waterways. Will there be ground surface water discharged? Will there be water discharged unintentionally into the aquifers? So I'm just wondering what you mean by waterways.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So waterways are defined under the Catchment Management Authority as declared waterways. That also applies to drainage lines. The requirements for wastewater and stormwater are to be discharged to approved disposal and dispersion areas within the site as per the land capability assessment and the stormwater conditions outlined in the permit.
So my next question is about abattoir compliance and biosecurity. Will these be covered by the applicant in the processing of the animals?
Smith, thanks, councillor Simpson. So council through the planning provisions don't assess the actual processing. That's PrimeSafe. They'll look after the regulations and the licensing around the actual abattoir itself. And that will look at biosecurity issues. It hasn't been considered as part of this planning permit application, noting there's other processes to go through post this decision.
Thank you. So my next question is about the buffer zone. We've been informed today that there is a 1 kilometre buffer zone around from the proposed abattoir. So would this buffer zone include the Deep Spring mineral spring?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. The buffer, as outlined in clause 5310 of the planning scheme, sets a 1 kilometre buffer for this type of use. It's not a mandatory buffer, but it gives councillors and council officers a good opportunity to assess potential off-site impacts. I don't have the exact location of that mineral spring, but I believe it falls somewhere within around 1 kilometre.
All right, thank you. So my last question is about the visual impact, the visual and the sound impact I know you have already said that there's going to be to form part of a visual block. My understanding is these trees aren't grown yet. So is there any other way or proposal to form a complete block to the abattoir for the people who live in the neighbourhood, visiting the shop? And not just visual, also the audio, the block. Is there any, proposed for that?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. The building that the proposal has put forward has the appearance of an agricultural shed sitting within a farming zone. The pens or the animal holding yards are quite close to that shed, and the actual activities associated with the slaughtering and alike happen within that shed, so that moves in. The landscaping conditions, yes, they take time, but they have longevity in terms of the permit, so council can continue to ensure that they are planted and maintained. We haven't deemed it necessary to have complete visual screening of that building. Likewise, noise hasn't been identified through our referrals to the EPA as being something of concern, and so we haven't put any additional noise provisions in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Boyd. Councillor Henderson.
Yes, sure, you Mayor. I'm also about the buffer zones, and I probably expressed my view about people's right to do what they like on their own land within limits. But 1,000 metres, can I be assured that if there's a neighbouring property owner who wants to build or develop, say, a dwelling within that 1,000 metres, will this preclude them from doing that on their land? That's the first question.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. In short, Councillor Henderson, no. They'll still require a planning permit through the provisions of the planning scheme, and it would be assessed on its individual merit. But the presence of an abattoir within a kilometre won't be in and of itself.
Right. Yeah, with the construction of the building, and I know that'll come under more or less under the building permit, but what about the people who are going to live on site and work on site? I mean, people are earning a living on this site and they're living on site. Do we have any responsibilities to protect them, their health, being so close to an abattoir? I mean, would we allow a neighbouring property, for example, to build a house right on the fence within, say, 100 metres or 50 metres of the slaughter shed? And how does that affect the residents who are there, the people who are actually living in, they're the owners, sure, but do we have any responsibility for them to ensure that they're going to be okay? And will this, you can answer this one in conjunction with that, if the applicant were to sell the property, would the conditions and everything go with the property?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Henderson. It is our role in assessing this application to ensure that any off-site impacts to neighbouring properties or even dwellings on the property are reduced, if not eliminated. So the conditions in the recommendations that we also have an enforcement role here as the responsible authority, along with the EPA and whether it be Goulburn Murray Water, Crime Safe, to ensure that this use is compliant with its permits. If you felt inclined, you could provide additional conditions around to strengthen that enforcement role. It's not an uncommon scenario with other rural type industries, farms, piggeries, cattle feedlots, for example, to have additional strength. But we wouldn't be recommending this application for approval tonight if we didn't feel comfortable that this use sits comfortably within its site and won't have an adverse amenity impact on its neighbours.
And the final question is, at what stage will this, assuming Crime Safe and all agree, at what stage does our planning permit kick in? Well, we've got this process going on out there, we're building the shed. What stage do we sign off to say it can operate? Is that once there's a building the building is completed and the health inspections have all taken place and that it all complies? Or is it that it'll be allowed to start and then these things done later?
Thank you, councillor Henderson, and it was remiss of me to say the permit stays with the land regardless of who owns it too, so I forgot to answer that part. The permit, in effect, once it issued approved, begins straight away. There's a number of conditions that are required to be met prior to any building taking place. So that's the additional documentations like the landscaping plan, dates to the environmental management plan and capability assessments. And so it's iterative. So as the development gets to each stage, there'll be a different set of conditions within there that will kick in. And then the use conditions begin when all of the relevant permits, authorisations, certifications have happened either at building or prime safe start. So there's a number of parts, and that effectively is when at the very end, when the use starts, that's when those use conditions and how they operate going forward kick in.
Thank you, Ms Boyd. Councillors, any further questions? That being the case, the officer's recommendation before us is that council, having complied with the relevant provisions of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, issues a notice of decision to grant a permit for use and development of an abattoir, subject to the following conditions as outlined in the meeting agenda. And there are some 45 conditions listed. I'm in search of a motion. Councillor Bray.
Thank you, councillor Hood. There are a number of conditions. I won't read them out. So my motion is to move the officer's recommendation, but with a number of additional points. The first point is at point F, 4F.
These are the
And these are additions.
conditions in yellow on the screen.
Yes. Do you want me to read those out? Yes. The rest is in the agenda. So I'll read out the additions. At point 4F, there is to be a nominated a community liaison person. Is that, am I reading this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Community liaison persons, which is independent of the operator of the abattoir. This liaison person is to be appointed by the applicant and is to be to the satisfaction of council. The nominated community liaison person is to be a point of contact between the abattoir operators and the community, including in relation to complaint resolution. The nominated community liaison person is to be provided with access to the farm logbook which is required to be kept as appropriate to assist in resolving complaint. That's point F. Point G, an additional point G, at all times monitoring, reporting, mitigation measures and external authorities' reports are required to satisfy all relevant environmental legislation requirements and the conditions laid out in this permit. These must be made available to council for review and assessment. Any corrective actions must be undertaken within a reasonable timeframe as specified by council. I have an additional point 14, which is under the heading of amenity. And it is in the event of the responsible authority receiving any complaint regarding the operation of the abattoir, the operator will be informed of such complaint by the responsible authority, and the operator shall immediately investigate the reason for the complaint and take appropriate remedial action as required to comply with this permit to the satisfaction of the responsible authority. There's an additional point 15 under the heading of amenity. If the responsible authority determines in its opinion that the amenity of the nearby residence is adversely affected by the emissions of an unreasonable odour, noise, dust or traffic noise from the abattoir, the operators must immediately take actions and or undertake works which are directed by the responsible authority and may include adjusting process and volumes, removing unsatisfactory waste promptly, or any other actions, including provision of mechanical odour or dust mitigation devices to rectify the emission of offensive odour, dust or noise, all to the satisfaction and specification of the responsible authority. Further, point 16. In the event of EMP nuisance complaint handling, I'm sorry, I need to be clear on what I'm saying, and I don't know what EMP nuisance complaint handling is. Could I refer to Ms Boyd to explain that?
Mr. Chair, environmental management.
Thank you. In the event of the environmental management plan nuisance complaint handling provisions not rectifying any complaint, in the opinion of the responsible authority, particularly in the areas of odour emissions or dust complaints, the responsible authority may, in its sole discretion, direct the operator under the permit and EMP to undertake a supplementary audit at the cost of the farm operator to identify the complaint causes and recommend appropriate ongoing remedies to mitigate the sources of the complaint and implement such remedies deemed appropriate by the authority as sole discretion and to the satisfaction of the responsible. And finally, one last addition is at point 21. The sentence reads, all waste materials not required for further on-site processing, with the addition of, in brackets, excluding composting, close brackets, must be regularly removed from the site to the satisfaction of the responsible authority. And the additional sentence to no stockpiling or burying of waste is permitted at any time. That is the extent of the additions to the motion, the rest being the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, councillor Bray. I'm in search of a seconder. Councillor Hewitt, thank you. Councillor Bray, you wish to speak to councillor Henderson, you have a question?
Bit of clarification before we debate it. Item 15 and some of the others, we hear responsible authority, the satisfaction of the responsible authority. Now, in some cases, that probably could be the council, or in other cases, it could be the EPA, or it could be Prime Safe. So I think perhaps, are we happy with that wording? I'm just making that inquiry. This responsible authority can mean a number of different authorities because this permit would be under the control of a number of different responsible authorities.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that's right, councillor Henderson. There are a number of different regulators involved in this. All of the conditions on this permit, though, council do have the ability as the responsible authority to take action on if one of those authorities didn't take the action.
Thank you for the clarification. So we have a motion moved by councillor Bray, seconded by councillor Hewitt. It's an amendment to the officer's recommendation. Councillor Bray, you wish to speak?
Thank you, councillor Hood. I just declare that I'm a vegetarian, have been for 36 years. So I am looking at this particular application for an abattoir with the lens of my councillor responsibility and not my own personal views on this subject. So when I look at it, I see the opportunity for our local farming industry to take some sort of security around its own operation processes, to value add to their farming practices, to be able to manage their animals on site without having to travel vast distances across the state. And so this is just sort of one of those things that we can see from the small farming businesses, really support them in their agricultural practice. Looking at this very thoroughly, I'm well aware that our officers have done a very thorough job looking at the complexities of this application. There's a lot of mitigating factors that need to be considered. There's certainly the views of the objectors to be taken into consideration for those living in the nearby area. And so with all of those things considered, this application and the conditions that have been placed on it by the officers, for me, satisfies me that this application will be well managed and will contribute to the health of our farming ecology and the ecology and economy in the Shire, but also that it meets the conditions of our planning scheme.
Councillor Bray, councillor Hewitt.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to have seconded this motion with the additions that have been identified on the screen. I note that an abattoir is a permitted use in the farming zone, but it does require a permit. And I congratulate the applicants for their thorough job, and I also commend our staff and officers for undertaking a thorough assessment. I do note that there were 30 objections, and I also do note that this is something new for the Shire. It is consistent with our plans or our policies for the farming zone. It is consistent in many ways with our council plan. but it is something that is new, and as a new, I'm happy to approve it, but I also recognise that in doing so, council is taking a risk. And we know the operators are here, so if this goes through, I hope they understand that too, because and that's why I appreciate Councillor Bray adding the additional compliance requirements in, because it's important that this succeeds, both as a sustainable venture, both as a value adding in agricultural and farming processes, and both as a model for what might be achieved as we move towards trying to encourage agriculture and farming in a sustainable way in our shire. I do note that the abattoir will be subjected to all the conditions that any abattoir would be subject to. And I note and congratulate the applicants on their use of Temple Grandin animal management techniques. And should you all, my fellow councillors, support this motion, I hope that it's a successful venture, and I hope that it provides a model for the ways we might be able to do things in the Shire going forward.
Thank you, councillor Hewitt. Does any other councillor wish to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Halliday.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to speak for the motion, or in favour of the motion. Like my councillor colleagues, I found the application incredibly thorough and the assessment thereof incredibly thorough. I think the conditions and the slight alterations that have been made do mitigate risks, and as noted before, it does meet our planning scheme guidelines and is an activity that can be carried out in the farm zone. I would like to acknowledge the objectors as well, but I think, like councillor Hewitt said, it is a little bit the fear of the unknown, and I'm hoping that in time the objectors will come around to seeing that this is actually a really positive thing for our shire. I wanted to touch on the fact that we've had a lot of issues with abattoirs in our state over the years, and the bigger is better is not the case. I really think that we need to get into smaller operations, smaller farms, smaller industry, keep everything closer to home, reduce your mileage, encourage circular economy processes, better welfare for the animals, and resilient communities that don't require services too far outside of their communities. I think that really was driven home during COVID. And so I see this as being a really positive thing for our communities, and Councillor Hewitt beat me to it, but I really feel like this could be a model to be rolled out. I'd like to see one in every town in our shire, so that all of our operators can have a facility close to home, and hopefully it'll be a model that other shires can add and take well. So I wish them the best of luck. 45 conditions is a lot, but I think you're up to the task. So good luck.
Thank you, councillor Halliday. Does any other, councillor Simpson?
Thank you. I'd like to speak against the motion. I would like to see information on the siting and design issues. I'm especially concerned about the lack of visual blocking, especially in the immediate future. and the blocking of noise. I'm very concerned about the aquifers under the potential abattoir that feed into the Deep Spring public mineral water collection area, which is within 1 kilometre of this proposed abattoir.
Thank you, councillor Simpson. Does any other councillor wish to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Henderson.
Yes, Mr Mayor. Well, I actually rise to support the application, and I do so with a little bit of trepidation, because anything new causes concerns, and when something happens that it's unknown, people naturally have the very concerns I have, and I don't live near the place. The fact that we had so many objectors, and they were local objectors by and large, and they had legitimate concerns. I think the onus to give this permit is that the owners will become a place where it's hard to say seen and not heard, but it will be seen and it will be heard, but to a lesser extent than what people believe that it will. I think it's good that people get involved in these small enterprises, and that's what it is. These people are really buying themselves a job, and it's not some rich entrepreneur who's opening up a multinational abattoir. It's some people who are working and grafting off the land. They're doing what they can do to make themselves a living and to provide a living for some other people, and that's to be applauded. But the note of caution is that the onus is upon the applicant now to show that the faith that this council has put by taking the step we have to allow what people call an offensive industry. They say piggeries are an offensive industry, abattoirs are offensive. Well, I can tell you that I don't think the meat comes off the butcher's shelves. I actually know where it comes from, and I'm unlike Councillor Bray, I love a good lump of steak or a good pork chop. So, and the less vegetables, the better, perhaps. But this comes at a price, and I hate to think that the decision we make comes at the price of those people who live along the area. I sincerely hope that what our officer has said about people who want to build near the area, they'll be building knowing there's an abattoir there. They won't be precluded from actually, their land will not become useless. Depending on size, I mean, 28 hectares. I mean, people with 28 hectares in that area have got a right to build a house. They've got a right to build an abattoir. Most people have 40 hectares. This is an opportunity to value add a relatively small in farming terms of land, and if managed well, should be something that we can showcase to other shires. It was many years ago now that when we did our council plan, people were a little bit wary of me saying that we should be looking at our farm gate sales and boutique farming. I called them boutique farms back then, in the same way as I call pump tracks BMX tracks. Well, a bit old fashioned, but everyone knows what I mean. It's a niche market, call it what you like, but and perhaps boutique's a bit fancy for an abattoir. But never mind, I think the council should take the plunge. I think we should put our trust in the applicants' work that they've done. They've consulted quite a number of experts. They'll be watched like a hawk, I can tell you, not just by us, but the neighbours will be watching out for what they do wrong. And I would hate there'd be phone calls week after week for things going wrong. And that's upon the applicant to ensure that they do everything right. They do get the thing up and going properly and comply with the regulations, and hopefully that'll see them. They've got a vested interest in getting this right, because if it ever gets shut down, it'll be very, very difficult to reopen. So thank you.
Thank you, councillor Henderson. Councillor Bray, as the mover, do you wish to exercise your right of reply?
No, thank you, councillor Hood. I think we've had a good discussion.
Councillors, I've now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. That's councillor Henderson, Halliday, Gray, Hewitt and Hood. All those against, councillor Simpson. Declare that the motion is passed. Councillor Dryly can return to the room. Councillor Dryly, welcome back. I can advise that agenda item 10.1 was passed. That brings us to agenda item 11.1, which is the awarding of a contract for sealed road patching in autumn 2023. And I believe that Deputy Mayor Hewitt is going to introduce this report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is the contract award for HEP BU RFT 2023.18 sealed road patching autumn 2023. Purpose of this report is for us to award the contract, as I read out. It's fully funded by Hepburn Shire Council for a combination of the sealed road patching program and the reseal preparation portion of the annual reseal program. The sealed road patching program funding allocation is a result of the council endorsed deferral and redirection of the 2022-2023 capital road rehabilitation infrastructure funding to the road patching program. Councillors, I presume in summary, this means fixing up potholes on council roads. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Hewitt. I think that's a safe assumption. Councillors, are there any questions? No, that being the case,
I do have a question.
councillor Hewitt, Henderson, you have
I have a question. The contractor that we're looking at, where do they come from and what is there any intention for them, stated intention for them to employ local labour? That's always a question that we should be asking.
Through you, Mayor. Civil by Parker are based in Ballarat, so by default employ largely local people, Ballarat based, and I'm not sure whether there's employees from within boundaries, but neighbouring municipality. So yes, there is that covered in their bid. Relatively small contractor that council has not utilised before for this work, but they have done this type of work for other providers, customers.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Councillor Henderson, you have another question.
In assessing this contract, did we actually, I know we've probably looked at references, but have we sought to see any of the works that this group have carried out in other municipalities? We haven't used them before, but have we researched that sort of detail as to how they've performed in other places?
Through you, Mayor. It would be unusual for us to have visited the site of works that they may have done in this context, but our standard practice is absolutely to talk to referees and previous clients of this firm, as we do with all our tender evaluation panels. We'll do that referee check, but it is unlikely with work of this nature that we will have gone and physically looked at work that they've completed.
Any further questions, councillors? That being the case, the officer's recommendation before us is in 4 parts. Firstly, that council awards contract number RFT 202318, sealed road patching autumn 2023 as a schedule of rates works contract to Civil by Parker Proprietary Limited. Secondly, authorises council officers to make variations and additions to the contract up to a maximum contract value of $500,000 excluding GST. Thirdly, delegates authority for the Chief Executive Officer to sign the contract documents on behalf of council. And fourthly, resolves that the attached tender evaluation report remains confidential. I'm in search of a motion, councillors. Councillor Dryly, seconded councillor Halliday. You're moving the officer's recommendation. Thank you. you wish to speak to any other councillor wish to speak for or against this? Councillor Hewitt.
I'd just like to speak for the motion, just to note in particular the my satisfaction at the comment included under the gender impact assessment. I would like it noted that I appreciated the officers including the gender impact assessment. Councillors, if you didn't read it, they noted that women tended to drive smaller cars than men and were likely to therefore hit the potholes at a greater rate. And I have to add that that's certainly what happens in my family. So I do want to acknowledge that this is something new that has the gender assessment, impact assessments are new being added, and I did notice it and do appreciate it.
Your diligence is noted, councillor Hewitt. Councillor Bray.
I just would like to stand and also support the motion, but also to note that I believe that it also said in the gender impact assessment that males tend to have greater injuries from certain road incidents, and that's to be balanced out with the female experience.
Any other councillor Henderson?
I'd like to support the motion, and I think roads are one of our, we spend a lot of time talking about all sorts of things on this council, but I can tell you that roads, rates and rubbish are still very important. And at the moment, it's topical to talk about roads. I do notice that point 2, authorise the office to make variations in additions to the contract up to the maximum of $500,000. I hope it's not $500,000 additional to the contract, because it'll make it quite an expensive contract. The additions will probably be more than the contract. However, I know what it means, and so I think wording is important, but never mind. I don't think it's too much, as much as women who hit potholes. When I look at Facebook, it's a fair spread of blokes who seem to destroy the things. Perhaps they go faster and have lower slung wheels that get damaged more easily, Councillor Hewitt, but very, very important issue. And it's a costly exercise to keep patching and patching and patching. Years gone by, we put one patch in a road every couple of years. It seems now, with our weather conditions and the breaking up and the ingress of water underneath the road surface, it's now a constant job. So where the jet patcher and other things went, the old jet patcher went around and fixed a few potholes. Now it's a constant job, and it's paying $500,000 just to go around and patch potholes. It's a lot of money, and I think our community deserves good roads to drive on ahead of everything else. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Henderson. Councillor Halliday.
Thank you. It's a strange thing to be talking about for this item, but I just wanted to note that continuing the assumptions of gender roles and stereotypes isn't helpful in improving gender inclusion and gender equity. So as much as it's kind of amusing, that comment, I actually think the assumptions there in some ways could be incorrect or damaging in that realm. So thank you.
Thank you, councillor Halliday. Does any other councillor wish to speak for or against the motion? That being the case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. And I declare that that motion is passed unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 11.2 is the awarding of contract RFT 202320, curb and channel and car park upgrades in Trentham. And the Deputy Mayor will introduce this report as well.
Just briefly, Mayor, the purpose of this report is for us to award contract Hep B RFT 2023-20 curb and channel and car park upgrades Trentham. The project is fully funded by Hepburn Shire Council for a combination of the 2022-2023 curb and channel program and the asphalt portion of the annual reseal program. And as I understand it, is to look at curb and channel changes in High Street, Trentham.
Thank you, councillor Hewitt. Councillors, are there any questions? That being the case, the officer's recommendation before us is again in 4 parts. Firstly, that council awards contract number RFT 202320 curb and channel and car park upgrade Trentham for the fixed lump sum of $227,992.98 exclusive of GST to Fulton Hogan Industries Proprietary Limited. Secondly, council authorises council officers to make variations and additions to the contract in excess of the lump sum awarded contract value within officer delegation and approved budgets and contingencies. Thirdly, delegates authority for the Chief Executive Officer to sign the contract documents on behalf of council. And 4, resolves that the attached tender evaluation report remains confidential. The motion, councillors. Councillor Bray moving the officer's recommendation, seconded councillor Halliday. Councillor Bray, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Halliday. Does any other councillor wish to speak for or against the motion? That being the case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. And I declare that motion is passed unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 12.1 is the National General Assembly Conference 2023, which carried the theme, Our Communities, Our Future. The purpose of this report is for council to note the attendance of the Chief Executive, Bradley Thomas, and myself in the capacity as Mayor at the 2023 Rural and Regional Summit, the National General Assembly of Australian Local Government Association, and the Australian Council of Local Government in Canberra from the 12th of June to the 16th of June 2023. The report is before us. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Bray.
Yes, I've read the report and it was very excellent, and I just wondered if there was any highlights that Mayor would like to share.
You're correct, Councillor Bray. It was a very solid 4 days. I think almost all of the 537 councils across the country were represented, and it's quite remarkable given the geographic differences across such a large number of councils that so many issues were common to all. And there many of those issues are very relevant to us. If you were to ask me for any particular standouts, I thought that the speech given by the Minister for Indigenous Australians, Linda Burney, was powerful and influential when she spoke about the voice referendum. That was particularly impactful, as was the address given by the ambassador for Ukraine. Pardon me for not remembering his full name or pronouncing it, but he spoke about their obvious troubles and also spoke about how a number of Australian councils have partnered with cities or towns or regions across Ukraine with their Australian counterparts. And although we haven't discussed it yet, that might be something we might like to consider at the right time. But also the Chief Executive and I met with the people running the Young Mayors program for teenagers. And as you'll be well aware, we're interested in that program. In fact, we've signed up for it and we're going to be participating in it. It was very interesting speaking to those people. And yeah, and of all of the 120 or so motions that were passed in the conference itself, it was particularly pleasing that the resolution or the motion put up by this council, and particularly generated by Councillor Halliday, was passed unanimously, and that was to modify the wording of the upcoming census. So that was particularly pleasing, but it was a very solid 4 days, very worthwhile interacting with colleagues and counterparts, not only from across Victoria, but across the country, and talking about issues that are common, but also some initiatives and innovations that they have introduced. So it's always good to get out of your local bubble and get into a different sphere. So it was very energising. Councillors, any further questions? The officer's recommendation before us is that council receives and notes the mayoral and chief executive officer conference report in relation to the 2023 National General Assembly and the Australian Council of Local Government. On in search of a motion, councillor Henderson.
I move.
Thank you. And a seconder, councillor Hewitt. Thank you. Councillor Hewitt wish to speak. Does any other councillor wish to speak? That being the case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. And that's passed unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 12.2 is the instruments of appointments to authorised officers under the Environment Protection Act 2017. And I believe councillor Halliday is introducing this report.
Thank you, Mayor. It's very, very brief. Basically, this item is to approve authorisations and delegations under the Environment Protection Act 2017, which are being refreshed based on staffing and position changes. So we're not changing the delegations. It's just allowing delegations for new staff. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Halliday. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillors, the officer's recommendation in the papers before us is in two parts with various sections. With your indulgence, I won't read all that out. I'm in search of a motion. Councillor Hewitt and councillor Simpson, you're moving the officer's recommendation.
The officer's recommendation.
Thank you. You wish to speak to the motion?
No.
Does any other councillor wish to speak for or against the motion? In that case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. And I declare that that's passed unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 12.3 addresses the appointment of a chair to the Audit and Risk Committee and a review of remuneration. And I ask councillor Simpson to introduce this report.
Thank you, Mayor. On the 20th of June 2023, the current chair of the Audit and Risk Committee, Ms. Linda McNeil, resigned at the ARC meeting on the 26th of June. Sorry, I've missed the full stop there. Ms. Linda McNeil resigned. I'd like to thank Linda for the work that she's done as the chair of the ARC committee. It is a community job that she's done, and she's been doing it for at least the last 2 years while I've been a councillor. So to carry on, at the ARC meeting on the 26th of June, members voted to recommend Ms. Carol, I'm not sure about the pronunciation, Pagnon, thank you, as the chair until the 31st of December 2023. In addition to the vacancy created by Ms. McNeil's resignation, the tenure of two other committee members, Ms. Carol Pagnon and Mr. Robert Taylor, will end in December 2023. Neither is eligible for reappointment. Rather than recruiting now, again in 2024, officers will commence recruitment for all 3 roles in August. To remain competitive and attract qualified people, council is also considering an increase to the remuneration for ARC members.
Thank you, councillor Simpson. Councillors, are there any questions? That being the case, the officer's recommendation before us is in 4 parts. Firstly, that council confirms Ms Carol Pagnan as the chair of the Audit and Risk Committee until the 31st of December 2023. Secondly, notes that recruitment for 3 independent members will commence in August 2023. Thirdly, approves an increase in remuneration for independent members to $1,000, including GST per meeting for the chair, $750, including GST per meeting for independent members. And fourthly, notes that the new remuneration amounts will be updated in the Audit and Risk Committee Charter if approved. Councillors, I'm in search of a motion. Councillor Henderson, you moving the officer's recommendation?
That's right.
Thank you. And a second, councillor Simpson, thank you. Sorry, I couldn't see you. Councillor Henderson, you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think it's important for us to recognise service when people give it. And during my time on the Audit and Risk Committee, I got to know both Carol and Robert Taylor, and they were very, very diligent members. And probably council should have taken perhaps more note of some of the things that they were asking. However, it's a good sounding board for council, and if we have the right people on there, it can actually assist the work that we do greatly. I've known Carol Pagnan as the chair, and I believe she was a very good chair. So I think that appointing her as chair will be in safe hands for that period of time. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Henderson. Councillor Simpson, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you.
Does any other councillor wish to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Halliday.
I just wanted to quickly say, because I think if you're not experienced with this type of committee, the remuneration might seem really high. And I just wanted to take note that it's not just the meeting that they are attending that they're being remunerated for. There's quite a lot of preparation for the meeting. The agendas are quite large. You could be sort of talking 400, 500 pages that they've got to go through, and it's not easy reading. So it could, a couple of days worth of reading, potentially other research involved. So it's quite a lot of work, and I just wanted to say that I think the remuneration is fair for the amount of work that they're putting in. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Halliday. Any other councillor wish to speak for or against? Councillor Dryly.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'd reiterate councillor Halliday's comments, and also just to thank Linda for her service over the period of time. She's a very good chair, kept us on track, and was very thoughtful in her comments and her parting comments, I think, well, given the important work this committee does and steering us through some difficult times and transformation as a council. And I appreciate the outgoing members as well for their dedication over this time as well.
Thank you, councillor Dryly. Councillors, I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. And I declare that that's passed unanimously. Takes us to agenda item 12.4, the extension of the Technology One contract. And councillor Dryly will introduce this report.
Thank you, Mayor. Purpose of this report is to recommend that council approves the extension of the contract with Technology One for software licenses for an additional 5 years. This renewal will enable us to launch our planned transformation roadmap as per the recently adopted ICT strategy, benefit from the comprehensive suite of technology solutions provided by Technology One, and ensure the smooth functioning of our operations.
Thank you, councillor Dryley. Councillors, are there any questions? That being the case, the officer's recommendation before us is that council approves the renewal of the software contract with Technology One for an additional 5 years. And secondly, authorises the Chief Executive Officer to finalise negotiation with Technology One and sign contract documentation. I'm in search of a mover. Councillor Simpson moving the officer's recommendation, and a seconder. Councillor Halliday, thank you. Councillor Simpson, do you wish to speak to that motion?
Well, just to say that I think it's very important that it's renewed, and I fully support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Halliday? Any other councillor wish to speak for or against? That being the case, I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. And I declare that that is passed unanimously. Thank you. Which takes us to agenda item 13.1, which is the closure of the meeting to members of the public. Councillors, the recommendation before us is that in accordance with sections 66(1) and 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020, the meeting to be closed to members of the public for the consideration of the following confidential items. 1, the maternal child health contract extension. And 2, the annual CEO performance review. Councillors, I'm in search of a motion. Councillor Simpson.
The officer's recommendation.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Henderson. Councillors, all those in favour of that motion, please indicate. I declare that that is passed unanimously. That being the case, I must advise that the public gallery, the meeting is now closed, and thank you for your attendance. We will all